And all that does, it comes from the military, right? It does. And making sure that you're getting adequate sleep and resting when you can. All these things have stemmed from military, which essentially has helped me on my journey, and is what I want to basically show to my clients and to everybody that I come across, is it doesn't need to be that complicated. It doesn't need to be confusing. It doesn't need to be overwhelming. Let's just start to integrate these daily actions slowly over a period of time, and you'll be surprised at how simple, not easy, but how simple things can be.
Hey guys, welcome to the Live, Train, Perform podcast. I'm your host, Shaun Kober, and joining me today is Rob Morgan. In the first episode, we covered off on a lot of his earlier life and his military career, and then how he transitioned into starting his own business, KIS Fitness, and the philosophies and principles that he built. And we pretty much led up to the point where I met him in 2015 on Soi Taid at Unit 27. In today's episode, we're going to be covering off on essentially the last 5 years, how his life has changed during that time and the lessons learned through that period. Rob Morgan, welcome back to the podcast, mate.
Hey, Shaun, great to be on the show again, mate.
Good stuff, mate. You've obviously listened to the last episode.
Yeah, I had a chance to listen through that this morning when I was walking back from the gym. So yeah, hopefully we can kind of finish that off. I know I like to chat a little bit, so hopefully we'll try and finish that off in this episode.
Mate, I think that's important to give people that background knowledge and that context of, you know, you didn't just become a PT and this is where you're at right now. Like, there's obviously lessons learned throughout life, and you're constantly learning, you're constantly growing. So I think it's important to give that background context. But today we'll dive into essentially, you leaving Unit 27, building your own business, and where you're at now. So what was the path that you took to end up where you are now? Like 2015, I met you. You stayed at Unit 27 for a little bit longer, and then you transitioned from there, and then you went traveling for a little bit, didn't you?
Little bits and pieces, yeah, little bits and pieces. I was basically at Unit until the end of 2016. So by the time I left Unit 27, I was there for 2 years. During the time that I was there, I'd kind of went from being like a strength and conditioning instructor on the gym floor and running the CrossFit classes and the S&C classes that they have there, and transitioned a little bit into developing more of a transformation program there, which is aimed more at kind of almost like a higher end VIP transformation program to work with people on more of an individual basis to create bigger changes in their lives. So guys that were really looking to create a change in their lives, you know, physically and mentally, and working them for number one on a closer one-to-one kind of basis, but number two for a longer period as well. So, you know, guys that come out to Thailand and commit to 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months and beyond. And you've seen yourself, you know, people come out and they end up spending up to 6 months out there sometimes. And sometimes guys, they don't even leave, right? So I spent that time there then, kind of the second year, mainly developing that program for Unit 27 and working with people there on that kind of level and creating some big changes to their lives and creating some really good transformations with people, and develop myself as a coach. Obviously, I learned a hell of a lot when I first got to Unit 27 with the coaches that were working there at the time, and kind of almost threw myself into the deep end with that move. Kind of going from where I was, we discussed on the earlier podcast, from being in London and having a small business there, to then being in, this kind of world-renowned gym, which it was by then, and having people flying in from all corners of the globe to train, and a lot, kind of high-level athletes, high-level coaches coming through there as well. So kind of cut my teeth as that, and then developed the transformation program, because that was essentially what my main kind of passion and my main inspiration was was to help people create significant changes in their lives. And that's what gave me the satisfaction from doing the job that I did. Then when we got to the back end of that second year, I came to another little bit of a crossroads. I was in a relationship at the time, and I'd been living with somebody out there in Phuket for I think it was a year and a half by the time we left there. And during my time at unit, I'd kind of been made all these offers. People would come through there and from all parts of the world, really, to whether it's to kind of build a gym in a different country or to start a new project with somebody that wanted to invest. And I was getting all these offers to do stuff, and obviously I had some ambition and I had belief in myself to create something of my own. And at the time, the girl that I was seeing wasn't really that happy in Phuket. So I kind of made a decision. I'd weighed up a few of the offers and made a decision to go ahead with a new project with an investor. So a guy was going to invest into a project, and we were going to up sticks and leave Phuket, which we did in the December of 2016. Then within the first, I don't know whether it was 4 weeks or 6 weeks, or the first phase of that project, it became clear to me that it probably wasn't the right move for me. So obviously, when we'd had our discussions in terms of what we were looking to do, what our values were, what the vision was, and what we were looking to achieve, we seemed to be as though we were on the same kind of song sheet, on the same hymn sheet. But when it came to the crunch, the guy, although we were supposed to be an even partnership, an even split, 50-50 split, because he was the investor and he's fronting up the money, he kind of felt that he had more of a pull with a lot of the decisions that were being made. So I kind of saw some red flags there, in the sense that, as far as I was concerned, I was going to commit 3 to 5 years of my life to this project, but I felt as if I didn't have control, and it wasn't really what I'd kind of envisioned when I first kind of thought about what the project would be. So I kind of decided to pull a pin on that and pop smoke before we got too deep into the project, because there was a construction, there was a build, and everything that needed to be done to get that off the ground. And at the same time, then there was a little bit of soul searching done in terms of the relationship, because there was a little bit of conflict there as well. Obviously, the change brought some stress in terms of the direction that we were going, and then what we were going to do. We'd kind of up sticks and moved, and now it kind of, not necessarily a failure, but not something that kind of worked out quite as we planned. So the way it worked out, I'd actually decided then to end that relationship. So at that point, having left Unit 27, the new project not quite taken off as well as what I'd liked, or as well as what I envisioned, and then deciding to end that relationship because we were kind of on a different course, if you will, and wanted different things out of where we were at that point in our lives. So I did a little bit of traveling around. I went home, I think we went to Turkey and went over to Tunisia and places like that, and then ended up coming back to Thailand on my own. And then, spent a little bit of time kind of soul searching and trying to work out what the next move was going to be. And that's when I just decided that, I knew the skill set that I had. I knew what the vision was that I wanted to create. I know I stood for, and I know, my values. So I'd had a little bit of money saved up from my time in, in the contracting or in the Middle East, as we spoke about in the last podcast. So I just decided to go all in and create the vision for myself, which is essentially what I was looking to do anyway. And that's when, Revival Escape was born, essentially. And the vision was to give people a platform to create change in their lives while being in a tropical environment that Phuket gives you and having an amazing time. and just somewhere that they can really focus on their well-being and their personal growth. So yeah, I launched Revival Escape. It took me a few months to get everything off the ground and to secure a location and to get my money through and all that kind of stuff. But then just put everything I had into launching that business. And yeah, just really trying to work with people on a much more individual, personalized basis to help them create a change, whether it was through, I had a whole variety of different people through with different goals and different ambitions for different reasons. So working with them on that to create a change in their lives, whatever that change meant to them, essentially. So
yeah, mate. Yeah, that's really cool, man. I just want to go back because there was something you said earlier, and my brain's ticking, and I'm trying to connect the dots and kind of see how your brain was working at the time. So obviously you had your own business back in London. You're doing predominantly PTs as well as some group coaching classes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you came to Unit 27. The first year was essentially group classes.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yep. So for the listeners that haven't been to Soi Taid in Thailand or Fitness Street, whatever you want to call it, it's pretty much a destination. It's like a street that's about 1.5 kilometers long that's just full of gyms. And Tiger Muay Thai was one of the first gyms there. And, it brought people from all over the world to train and to change their lives and, give them a kickstart in moving in the right direction. And then a number of other gyms popped up, and Unit 27 was one of them. And they, developed a really good brand and a good reputation very quickly. Titan Fitness popped up, and I think now there's probably like 12 to 15 gyms along that one street. Not too many catering just to strength and conditioning, but there's a lot of smaller Muay Thai gyms and things like that as well. But obviously your group coaching group classes, and then you went into the process of building out the transformation program. Now, what was the difference between going from that group class environment into more of the individualized transformation process?
Yeah, so I was doing the group coaching classes, but also concurrently with that, I was doing more kind of PTs, one-on-one PTs, because like I said, people go there for a period of time. Some people are happy with the group classes and the group fitness, and that's enough for them. But there's other people that need a little bit more kind of individualized support and help. So I had been working with people on that level through that first year, and again had some really good success working with some people on that element. But it kind of, as you develop yourself as a coach, right, and when you start off in the industry, the first thing you usually do is gain a PT qualification, and you realize, right, I need to help these people create a change on a physical level through training and exercise. And then usually what you do is you learn a little bit more about nutrition and, okay, I'm getting these people moving, I'm getting them exercising. I also need to make sure that I'm helping them, eat the right foods and nourish themselves properly. But then on a deeper level than that, then you also have to look at kind of human behavior and the kind of the psychological effect and what's preventing them from eating the right foods, or what stresses or traumas are they dealing with that is preventing them from creating the changes that they want to create. So I kind of spent a lot of time working on that aspect then, and kind of studying a lot more about that in order to figure out how to help people create these changes, and not just create the changes, but make sure that they were sustainable changes that they could maintain, not just for the time period that they were there training with me, but when they went back home to their lives and to their kind of natural environment. So as I developed myself as a coach and started to pick up all these skills and the knowledge myself, I then wanted to pass that knowledge on to the clients and the people that I was kind of coming into contact with.
Oh man, that's so awesome to hear, because my PT journey, strength and conditioning journey, is very similar. Working with general population clients, and particularly in Soi Thait in Phuket and Thailand. It is a destination gym, so people come over for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and they're training 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. They're eating cleaner because there's not many poor food options, and they're literally just focused on training. They don't have the external stresses and distractions and all that type of stuff, and that's awesome whilst they're here training. But what do they learn? What can they take back? What can they apply to their everyday life? And this is something that I figured out along the way, and obviously you figured out, and that's why you transitioned into your own coaching business, which we'll get into in a moment. But that's the thing, man. Like, a fucking coach is someone who looks at the other 23 hours of the day, right? Like, you need to make the most out of the other 23 hours of the day and optimize those hours so that you can get the most out of that training time. And anyone can just fucking put someone on 3, 4, 5 sessions a day of training and cut their calories down to 1,500, and they're going to get good results. But what happens when they go back to their normal life and they've got these they've got to go back to work, and they've got these financial stresses, and they've got these relationship issues, and they've got these life just gets in the way, man. So I think you and I are very similar in that sense, where we're looking at creating long-term sustainable change. We're giving advice, we're giving actionable takeaways that people can implement into their daily routine, essentially to lead them to long-term success. So is that kind of one of the driving forces behind you transitioning from Unit 27 into going into Revival Escapes?
Yeah, 100%. Like you say, you can only impact if you're working with somebody for 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day. There's only so much you can impact, but you really need to spend time focusing on the other 23 hours of that day and the rest of their week, and taking time to focus on everything else that they need to do, not only when they're in that training environment where everything's set up for them to succeed because they don't have the distractions and they're in the perfect environment and it's very supportive and everybody there is in a similar situation to them. But then how do we create a strategy for you to implement that when you go back home into your normal life? And, to be honest, I did manage to create some good transformations with people, but I saw, because they did it in such a short period of time in that environment, some of them sadly weren't able to maintain and sustain it, because when they went back, they just reverted back to their old habits and behaviors in the same routine with the same people doing the same things, and eventually it kind of led them back to where they were previously. So a big part of my focus was then on, right, let's create a strategy. Let's not just do the work while you're here, but what does your life look like? What else have you got going on at home that we need to consider, and how can we strategize towards creating, like you said, that sustainable long-term change?
That's fucking awesome, man. So what is some of the stuff that you worked on with your clients? So I obviously came to, we did a little bit of work together when you weren't available. You went away for a month or so, and you would give me a client here and there to look after whilst you're away. And I saw what you had going on at your retreat, man. I was super impressed with what you were doing and how you were conducting it. So for the listeners, can you explain, how those retreats were working and what you were focusing on?
Yeah, so we would essentially look at all aspects of health and fitness, from their training to their nutrition. So we would do basically the business model was I would take up to 4 people at a time. And I had essentially, it was like a small resort in a villa. Obviously, you came down and saw that. You were down there yourself. So had the villa, try to grow a team to help deliver this product that was not only training, but educating them on why we were doing this training. So there was workshops on nutrition, workshops on the training itself, training principles, the mindset, mindfulness. I had a meditation practitioner coming down. We had yoga going on, breath work workshops. Pretty much leaving no stone unturned to make sure that people had all the tools and the techniques that they needed when they returned home, and basically opened up their eyes to a whole plethora of different techniques and tactics that they could use depending on where they were in their own situation.
Yeah, man. I'm assuming this is how your online coaching business started, because that's kind of how mine started. I mean, I started my online coaching business like 5 years ago. And when I first moved to Thailand, that was my goal, was to, build out my online coaching business and kind of use that to sustain myself before I got offered a full-time job at Tiger, and then before I became head coach. But, that's something that's definitely come back into my game plan, is that online coaching. So I do get people that I'm training with one-on-one at Tiger, and they might be around for a couple of weeks or whatever. And, I open their eyes to all of these other aspects of life that needs to be managed so that they can get the most out of their training, so that they can improve their body composition, their performance, and, their health markers and all that sort of stuff. So I really saw a massive market in transitioning those one-on-one face-to-face clients into online coaching clients to kind of, build the foundation whilst I was with them, get them to focus on the things that were most important, and then kind of follow up on that and ensure that they were moving in the right direction, and give them some, tips and guidance whilst they were back in their home location. Because like you said, man, when you're in a specific, your environment plays a massive part on everything, right? Whether you're moving in the right direction or whether you're sabotaging yourself. And, you can give people all the tools and techniques when they're in the right environment without those distractions, and they're just focusing on their training and their nutrition. But as soon as they get back into their home life, all of those stresses and distractions and that environment just leads them back into, basically what they were doing before, because essentially people fall back into their own habits. So I think that online coaching component was a massive part for me to kind of fill in the gap and provide that guidance and that direction for once they did get home. Is that what you found as well?
Yeah, definitely. I'd actually started my online coaching when I made the move from London to Phuket. Obviously, I had my client base that I'd built there in London, so I kind of I made the transition into creating the online platform so that I can continue to work with them. And probably I'd say maybe 50% of the clients that I were working with at the time in London then came on board as online clients with me. So it's something I'd kind of started working on then. And then obviously it took a little bit of a backseat while I was at unit because of all the, the hours I was doing on the gym floor and all the rest of it. But I still maintained a small client base through that. But then, yes, definitely when I created Revival, the online aspect that I was able to offer to support them when they went home was a massive benefit for them, because it was like, right, I'm giving you all this information, I'm giving you all this knowledge and these tools now, and when you go, I'm going to continue to support you through this online program, the online platform that I built. So I had that there as well, which obviously is so important, because you can give everybody or give people everything that they need, but then they're not necessarily going to have the accountability or the support or the guidance that they need to then maintain that further down their lives.
Yeah, man. That's super important. And that's an issue that I see with a lot of retreats, is that people look at these retreats as, I'm going to fix myself. And they go to these retreats for 2 weeks and they're training 3 times a day and eating 1,500 calories or whatever. And of course they see good results. They lose weight, and majority of the time they're going low carb and they're just fucking depleted their glycogen levels, and, they just lose water weight, or they're in a massive calorie deficit and they lose a heap of muscle mass. But these retreats aren't actually, showing these results for their body composition. It's just showing, oh, here's your weight loss. How are you feeling? And they're like, oh, I'm feeling really good, because they've cut out processed foods and they're actually moving and they're training and they've reduced their stress and all that type of stuff. But then once they get home, they fall back into those old patterns, and, they essentially 6 months later get back to the point where they were beforehand, then some, and then they go, oh, I know what got me in shape last time. Let's go back to that retreat. Like it's a fucking good marketing. It's a good marketing deal. But it doesn't actually help people long term. And I think that's something that, any good coach like yourself, myself, we're looking at this long-term sustainable change. Yes, we want to give this information, we want to give this advice, but we also want to provide guidance along the way. And, it's been a big thing for me where I've had clients, like online coaching clients. I run 3-month online coaching blocks. And a lot of the times I've got these clients and, when things are going well, they're like, yeah, sweet, I'm checking in. I'm doing my body composition testing. I'm tracking my food. I'm tracking my steps. I'm tracking my sleep. I'm tracking my waking heart rate, blah, 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 blah. But then I'll touch base with them and they'll be like, hey, I don't want to check in this week. I don't want to do my body composition. I don't want to do this because, the last couple of weeks I've been stressed out. I've changed jobs. I've had some issues with my relationship and blah, 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 blah. And like, I just don't want to see those results. I'm like, this is exactly when you need to see those results. Like when you're doing the right thing, it's all well and good to check your progress and go, sweet, give yourself a pat on the back. But the important thing is, when things aren't going well, to make sure you check your progress because, well, this is what's been happening over the last 3 weeks. And this is how it's affected my body composition, but not only my physical health, my mental health, so it's important to check in on those things. And what you said earlier was extremely important. And this is the first place that I start is looking at the psychological and behavioral components of clients. Before we do anything, before I don't give meal plans or anything like that, but, back in the day, I'd give people a training program, I'd give them their meal plan. I'm like, sweet, let's get after it. But, I obviously didn't know what I know now. And it's that psychological and behavioral component that plays a massive part in, how they move forward and how they look at all of these components that fit in together that make up their life. Is that something you've found as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used to tell every client that came to Revival Escape, I would say, I don't determine the success of this program based on what's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I determine the success of this program on what's happening in 12 months' time, 1 year, 3 years down the line. So for me, it wasn't real. Obviously, yeah, we wanted to help them create a change in that period, but I didn't used to spend too much time, worrying about what they would achieve in that time period. It was a lot more important to achieve that kind of long-term success. And like you said there, when things are going well, people are responsive, they're engaging, they're tracking all their workouts, they're tracking all their food, they're very communicative. But then as soon as something happens, like you say, whether they have an issue with their relationship or their job or whatever happens, as sad it is to say, a lot of people kind of go silent, right? Radio silence, and you don't hear of them for a couple of weeks, and then they check back in and say, "Oh, sorry that this happened, that happened." And it's like that is the most important time to check in on your actions and your behaviors. And not only that, it's the most important time to tell your coach what's going on so that they can help guide you around those situations.
That's mate, that literally like weighs up my mindset, my thoughts on that as well. I say to my clients, when things are going well, anyone can be a good coach, but it's when things aren't going well that a good coach actually starts fucking working, actually steps up and starts doing their job, right? So I think that's awesome how you weigh that up, man. The next thing I want to move on to is we've both obviously ex-military, but we speak about mental health a lot and, optimizing mental health through all of these principles that we spoke about in the last episode of Swiss 8, but also the KIS Fitness principles of, movement, mindfulness, nutrition, sleep, personal growth, minimalism, all that type of stuff. So if people are struggling with their mental health, is there any advice that you can give to them?
Yeah, I think the best bit of advice to give is that it's okay to talk, and it's okay to seek help and to show weakness, because so many people are dealing with things that they don't discuss, they don't talk about, and they just bury them deep inside. Whether it's guilt or shame or regret or fear, whatever these emotions are, and they just bury them deep inside, and they don't feel as if they can confide or talk to anybody about it. And that's when you create all that internal stress, if you will. within yourself. But the simple act of being able to share a problem can have such a profound effect on it. And like I said, then going back to the things that I was doing with revival. Now I'm in no way an expert in this field, but it's something that I have helped people with overcoming these sorts of issues. And during some of my coaching sessions, I've had people literally break down, burst into tears and literally pour in their hearts out to me with things that have been buried deep within them that they've never been able to confide in people, and they've been carrying these burdens which have been paralyzing them in life. And to get to that point, obviously, you need to build an element of trust, and somebody needs to kind of have that relationship to be able to confide or to trust in you. But it doesn't necessarily need to be a friend or a relative or a family member. I mean, there are professionals out there that can help deal with these issues. If you don't feel that you can confide in a friend or a family member or somebody that you engage with on a regular basis. So there are people out there. So it's important to seek help, and to reach out and to not be afraid of showing a weakness. And this is particularly hard for men to do, I find, because health is kind of socially constructed as a feminine concern, and in particular mental health. So that stops men from seeking help or having any openness about showing their feelings or their insecurities, particularly to other men, right? So yeah, mental health illnesses, I've done a little bit of work with this recently. Again, I said I'm not an expert in the field, but all the research and stuff that I've done, it's shockingly disproportionately affects men a lot more due to those reasons. As men, we are taught to be strong, we're taught to be stoic, and if we lose that element of kind of machoism, it's seen as a weakness. So being able to confide and to talk to people and to seek out help is the best advice that I can give around that.
Yeah, I like that, mate. For people that don't know my story, I came from a poor family. Don't know my father. I've got an abusive stepdad, or had an abusive stepdad. And left home when I was 14, pretty much went out and forged my own path, joined the military, had people I knew killed and injured and things like that. And I haven't dealt with mental health issues too much, but that's because I do talk about things. If anyone follows me on social media, you can go back and read some of these posts that I've done in the past about me saying if I had have said that I wasn't afraid of dying, I would be lying. And then I'd go into the whole story about where I was at that time, what was happening, what was going through my mind, and dealing with these kind of processes. And for me, it's like an outlet. It's something to use. It's a platform to express what's going through my mind. And and I've actually had a lot of people reach out to me and say, "Hey, man, thank you so much. You're an inspiration for me." And I've literally had tears in my eyes reading some of these messages with people saying, "You've helped save my life and you've helped me change my mindset and turn things around." And that's simply from me sharing my own experiences. That's not me looking out for sympathy or empathy or anything like that. Like, I don't really give a fuck about that. I'm literally just, expressing this, using this platform to express and put my thoughts into words, because a lot of the times, like you said, men just typically bottle things up and they don't speak to anyone about things. And, for me, that's the ultimate vulnerability, is to share this stuff on social media. And, like I said, I'm not sharing it for sympathy or anything like that, but if someone reads it and it resonates with them and they're like, well, this dude's been through that and, he's come out of it on the other end and, he's built some mental resilience and some mental toughness and he's in a good place. And, what are the lessons that I can learn from him? Then for me, that's fucking the ultimate reward, right? And I know you've recently shared some stories, some posts on mental health as well. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, so similar situation really, using the platform, whether it's through social media, Facebook, Instagram or whatever, to to show men that it is okay to be vulnerable, to share some of my own experiences and some of the lessons that I've learned, and that to show people that it's okay to be vulnerable and not to have to bottle these things up. And I kind of pledged this year to try and create more open and honest conversations with men around these issues that are kind of stigmatized or a little bit of a taboo kind of subject, to try and get more open conversations going. So yeah, similar to you, I've had people reaching out to me and telling me how what I've shared has helped them on their journey, and reaching out and showing gratitude and all the rest of it. And if we can do that on our platforms, and if it helps even one person, then what we're doing is worthwhile and useful. So this year for me, I've tried to do that a lot more, and I've kind of very recently anyway, I created a new program. I launched a new program in order to help raise awareness for mental health illnesses, depression, anxiety, PTSD that lead to men committing suicide. So I did a bit of a fundraiser and raised some money for the UK charity Calm. And how that came about was I got nominated to take part in a push-up challenge to try and help raise awareness for mental health. But I'd already been nominated for a very similar challenge 4 years ago, back in 2016. So at the time, the cause was 22 Kill, which was an American kind of cause, mainly at ex-servicemen, right? And soldiers that killed themselves or took their own lives. And back then I did the challenge. I did the 22 push-ups for 22 days, and I nominated somebody every day. And, you see people doing these challenges, and I'm the kind of guy, if I do a challenge like this, I'll see it through. And, not necessarily everybody has seen it through, but I did see it through. And I nominated somebody every day. But one of the guys that I actually nominated on that challenge, a few months later, completely unrelatable, but actually an ex-service guy took his own life. So when I got nominated again this year to take part in the challenge, obviously I'm not somebody that backs down to a challenge, and it happened to be one of my own clients that had kind of nominated me. So I'm like, do I, start this challenge again and do the 25 push-ups and record myself and post it on Facebook, or is there something more I can do? So, if what I did 4 years ago didn't necessarily have as much of an impact as what I liked, what else can I do to try and create more awareness and have more of an impact on these issues? So that's when I decided to launch the new program, 28 Straight. Number one, to help men create a positive change in their own lives, physically, mentally, and emotionally. But number two, to then donate the proceeds of that program to the UK charity Calm, to help them in their campaign against raising awareness for these issues.
Mate, that's so awesome, man. And again, so many parallels. I remember back in 2016, I went, 22 push-ups for 22 days, nominate someone, et cetera, et cetera. And I saw the whole thing through, and then pretty much similar to you, man, I had a number of people nominate me a couple of months ago. And I just had to reply. I'm like, look, I'm really sorry. As much as I, want to help raise awareness, I also don't want to clog up my feed with, the same thing every day that people are just going to scroll past. I'm like, I'm working on launching a podcast that's actually going to give people actionable advice, so it's, yes, awareness is fucking good. And it is important, but, it doesn't do anything for giving people the tools and the techniques that they need to start implementing on a day-to-day basis. So, my friends understood that, and I was nominated a number of times, and I was like, look, I'm not going to clog up my feed. And yes, I do support it, but I'm launching a podcast for that exact reason, to give people these actionable takeaways that they can start implementing. So, mate, can you make sure that you send through those links that you just spoke about so that I can add them to the show notes?
Yeah, man, sure thing.
Yeah, cool. All right. That's excellent conversation, mate. I think that's really important. So talking about the mental health components, like you've obviously gone through some processes over the last kind of 5 years where, relationship breakdown and, launching a project that didn't take off and, having to change direction and things like that. So was there some mental health components there, and what did you do about it, and how has your life changed over the last 5 years? How have you dealt with those setbacks?
Not necessarily kind of mental health issues around that. Obviously, as humans, we all deal with these issues, right? But it's how we deal with them that determines, kind of whether it's a success or whether it's a failure. So to me, it's not a failure because I learned the lessons from that. And when I went through that process, I then knew exactly what I wanted and where I wanted to go. And it forced me to do that soul searching, to look within myself. And again, I got pulled back to Phuket. We mentioned this on the last podcast, is that Phuket is somewhere that kind of kept pulling me back in. And it's just somewhere that I felt content and calm and a sense of inner peace. And for me, that environment was somewhere that I felt that I could be the best version of myself. So if you took me out of that environment, for example, and maybe put me in a busy city or another country, I'm not going to be the same person as I am operating in the environment and the situation that I'm in. So I became aware of that. And it was a chance for me to kind of, get to know myself. And then, as we mentioned, it's revert back to your daily actions, your habits and your behaviors of starting to train well and starting to focus on your health and your fitness and your mindfulness and your sleep. And when you're doing all these things, correctly, consistently for a period of time, that's when you then feel inspired and motivated and creative to be the best version that you can be. And that's what gave me the motivation and the confidence in myself to then launch the business and, kind of try to make that a success.
I love that, mate. I just want to talk about for a second there, because this is something that people, I think, are going to resonate with. And, you said you did a little bit of soul searching. What did you mean by that?
Basically taking some time to gain some perspective and to assess, try and learn some lessons and take some feedback from the failures, or the failed relationship or the failed business project or wherever it might be. See what you can learn from that and kind of assess what you might do differently in the future and how that would then impact and affect you. So kind of just spending some time to go within, to be alone with your thoughts. Look, for me, I can do that in that environment where I'm on the beach. I'm in that, kind of sunny climates where I'm feeling positive, and it's kind of feeding my soul, which then allows me to make better decisions. So essentially just taking the time to deal with these issues, because people are so scared of spending time alone with their thoughts and dealing with these negative thoughts and negative emotions. But it's not until you actually sit down, press pause on life and close out all the noise and all the distractions, that you can then create a strategy for where you want to go and what you want to become in your life.
I fucking love that, man. Honestly, that is such a brilliant answer. And I think it's hard for people to kind of wrap their head around that, because, we live in this world where we're constantly distracted, and if we are having some, mental health issues, or we have failed or something like that, people start beating themselves up about it. And then they can't get out of their own head, and they're, constantly distracting themselves with drinking or doing drugs or going out and partying or whatever it might be. And they never actually take the time to, sit down and bring their awareness to whatever's going on in their life. One of the best analogies I've ever heard in my life, I can't remember exactly where I heard it from, whether it was a podcast or a book, was there's two types of people looking at the world through windows or in mirrors. And the first person, when things are going really well, they look in the mirror and they give themselves a pat on the back, and they big up themselves for putting themselves in a good position. And then when things are going bad, they look out the window and they point the finger at all of these other people and their environment and the bad luck and all that type of stuff. But on the flip side, you've got people who, when things are going well, they look out the window and they look at the people that have helped them along their journey. They look at, these opportunities that they've been presented, and they look at the environment that they've put themselves in that allows them to take these opportunities and run with them. And then when things aren't going well, they look in the mirror and they say, right, what have I done that's put me in this situation? How can I fix this? How can I move forward?
Yeah, man, that's powerful. And it's taking the accountability and the responsibility yourself, rather than blaming other people or other things.
Awesome, man. How has your life changed over the last 5 years?
Pretty drastically, really. Obviously, from a business perspective and everything that we've just discussed in terms of how I've developed as a coach and kind of tried to launch my own businesses and live through trying to help people create change in their life, has then led me to creating change within my own life. So obviously I mentioned about the failed relationship 4 or 5 years ago when I left 27. So now not only am I in a position that I'm kind of happy or kind of content from a business perspective, but also on a personal level, having since then found somebody that I decided that I want to marry. Obviously, my wife Jess, you were at the wedding last year. So yeah, getting married and kind of finding my soulmate, if you wish, and somebody that I want to spend the rest of my life with. And then this year now having our first baby, right? So little Summer is 12 weeks old. So having spent that time going through all those processes that we've just discussed, in turn trying to become better a coach and a better person and a better businessman, has then led me to be able to create better relationships, and to be able to create a nice balance in my life to make sure that it's not all clients, it's not all business, it's not all training or fitness, but also to have that relationship element to kind of lead me to where I am right now.
Mate, big question for you. If you had have met Jess 5 years ago, do you think you'd be in the same position right now?
Difficult question. And possibly not. I would have likely have gone down a similar route and a similar road, but maybe just took a different direction to get there, because we've mentioned about the energy and the effort and the time I put into creating that business, which is where all my effort and energy went for a period of time. But then once I did start to develop that relationship with Jess and decide that I wanted to take it further, and obviously we got engaged, I kind of switched focus a little bit and I came to the realization that I couldn't give all the time and energy to the business without giving all the time and energy to my relationship, which is essentially when I kind of transitioned from Change and Revival Escape to what it was then to what it is now. So, having to take a step back from that and give more time to my relationship and to developing that, and which led us to then being in a position to get married and to spend time together, as we're doing now.
I think that is such an important lesson for the listeners back home, is that your values are going to change over time. And when your values change, then your actions need to change as well. So that's the reason I asked that question, mate, was because obviously you went through that breakup and you went through that transition period, the failed project, so to speak. That would take a toll on, the direction that you're moving in. But you obviously learned a lot of lessons from that. And, something they say in the business world is fail forward.
Yeah.
fail early, fail fast, learn those lessons, and then, change course and start implementing those lessons that you've learned. So I think that's awesome that you can recognize that and realize that, once you got to that point where you met Jess, you were in a different point in your life and you had taken those lessons, then, you kind of transition and you realize that she was important and you wanted to work on that relationship, which meant that you need to sacrifice somewhere else. I think that's such an important lesson, man. And, when it comes to life, right, like there's so many aspects of our life that people just take for granted. But if you want to improve one area of your life, that means you're going to need to sacrifice in other areas of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the first things that I try and do with my clients. It's the wheel of life, right? So it's all the different areas that you need to be focusing on to kind of create a balance and happiness with your life. And if you spend too much time focusing on one of those areas, you're going to get an imbalance on one of the other areas. So if you spend too much time, focused on your career, is your relationship gonna take a hit? Or if you're spending too much time on your health and fitness, is your finance and your career possibly going to take a hit? So it's about creating that balance and looking at all those different aspects and those different areas to try and maintain a fully inflated wheel.
I like it. Yeah, but I mean, ultimately it comes down to what your values are, right? Like at that time, your value was to, build this project, to build the business. And then, once you kind of failed forward and you learned those lessons and then Jess came onto the scene, you realized this was a girl that you cared about a lot and you wanted to progress your life together. So then, that became a value for you. It became a top value, I'm assuming. And then you started investing more time, energy, and effort into that relationship, which meant that, other areas of your life were going to take a little bit of a hit, but that was a sacrifice that you were willing to make, right?
Yeah. So knowing what your values are and being able to prioritize them, I think is important. And the old kind of values hierarchy. So looking at, what you want to achieve, and then asking yourself, how does that compare with what I'm focusing on, what I'm putting energy on, or what I'm prioritizing right now?
Yeah, awesome, man. The one thing I want to talk about before we start winding up, I'm just looking at the time and we're closing in on an hour, but there's still a few things that I want to get through. Is there any outstanding mentors or leaders or people in your life that have had a significant impact on, your development as a person, as a coach, as a husband, as a father?
Yeah, from a kind of coaching or professional aspect, I guess one of the early mentors that I had was the guy that took me on my PT course. I think you might know him, actually, Lee Withers. He's out now in Singapore at UFit. So he was actually my tutor on my PT course back in 2013, I think it was. And at the time, he is one person that kind of lit the fire in me to give me the kind of confidence and to give me the motivation and enthusiasm to go on and become a full-time PT and then to develop into a coach and to lead on the path that I'm now on. And I've said this, like I've remained in contact with Lee ever since. And funnily enough, we spoke to each other this morning because he's recently had a baby girl as well. And I've said this to him before. It's like if he wasn't the instructor on that course, I don't know if I would have gone down the path that I've gone down, because a lot of the fitness quals and the courses that I did were run by people that didn't necessarily have the enthusiasm or the passion to show me what I would be capable of. But the way he instructed and taught that course kind of really did light up the fire in me, and then kind of, I think, definitely led me down or initially in those early days anyway, down the path that now I'm currently on. And then also want to mention you as well, another guy who is Mark Mariani. So again, in those early days, I think I mentioned when I first came to Thailand, I saw, the videos of Mark and Woody training down at TFW. And obviously I went down there to train with them and then trained with Mark, and kind of we remained in touch. And then when I made the decision to come back to Thailand, he was kind of my first port of call. I had a chat with him and discussed, and he gave me some advice around that. And then when I first moved out, he was somebody that I would meet up with, and kind of I'd pick his brain on a few different things, and really kind of looked up to and respected where he was at the time in the fitness industry and what he stood for. And then, of course, since then, me and Mark kind of partnering up and now becoming business partners, and everything that kind of he stands for, and the values, and everything that he's aligned with. And I think, it's no coincidence, talking to you. Also, Mark is an ex-military guy. Obviously, he's American. He's an ex-US Marine. So there's a common theme in all this, right? So from a coaching and a business and professional aspect, those two guys definitely play their part.
Yeah, cool, man. What about other areas of your life? Has there been people that, sorry to put you on the spot here, but has there been other people that, have shaped other areas of your life as well? Like maybe a mentor where you're like, well, that person's a really good father. Like I look at some of my mates, man, and they've got a couple of kids, they're married, and, I'm 35 years old, never married, never had kids, and, unsure if that's going to change. But I look at some of my mates, man, and I'm like, you guys are fucking brilliant fathers. And, if I ever have kids, I'm going to be coming to you guys for advice, because, how you raise your children and the values that you're, guiding them through. And, you guys are the role models, right? Children are sponges, man. And these guys are role models. And I look at them and I'm like, if I ever become a father, I'm going to be looking at you guys to kind of give me some words of advice and give me some guidance and push me in the right direction. Is there anyone in your life that's provided that for you?
Yeah, I guess my own dad, right? When we were young, we didn't necessarily have, too much money. We weren't really poor, but we didn't have overly too much money. And the job that my dad did wasn't, the best job in the world. He was a labourer and then a storeman for the later part of his life. So didn't necessarily have everything to give in terms of finance and opportunity, but the love that he gave me and my sister and my brother, was far outweighed anything material that he could have given me. And that's something that then I want to obviously pass on to my children, and just becoming a father myself. Showing love and affection and being able to do all you can with what you've got and the resources that you've got, to do all you can to give your children the best childhood and the best life that you could possibly give them.
Mate, I love that, man. To round out the episode, is there any advice that you would give to 20-year-old Rob Morgan?
I think the biggest advice looking back would be just to trust yourself, and to back yourself with any major decisions that you have in life, because I think so many people we're kind of paralyzed by any internal conflict, and we're so scared or so fearful of the unknown, or scared of failing, that we don't or possibly get what we want out of life, or reach our true potential. So trust in yourself to make those decisions, and backing yourself to be a success, or even if you're not a success, to learn from your failures. Because, if you're torn between making two decisions, whatever decision you make is going to be the right one. It has to be, because it's the one that you go with. So you need to put everything that you have into that decision and that choice, and to back yourself to carry that out. And just know that you're going to make some bad decisions along the way. Not every decision is going to be the right one. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. But like you said, as long as you're failing forward and as long as you're learning from the mistakes, then it's going to get you to where you want to be.
Mate, that is part 2 of the interview done. Absolutely love chatting to you, mate. Congratulations to you and Jess on the birth of your new child. I hope everything's going well for you, my man. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you over the last couple of episodes, and hopefully there's some actionable takeaway points for the people listening back home. Is there anything else that you want to finish with, mate?
No, mate, just been an honor to be on the podcast. Obviously, big props to you. We met up, can't remember when exactly it was, but the last time we met up and chewed the fat and had a cup of coffee, you told me that you were going to launch your podcast, and you told me what the aim and the mission and the goal was, and that you were going to bang out these 20 podcasts. And I was like, yeah, go for it, Cobes. And credit to you, mate. You went there, you made it happen, and you did it. And so it's been an honor for me to see, an inspiration for me to see you releasing all these podcasts. And I've listened to a fair few of them myself. And it's been great for me to come on the show and hopefully try and contribute towards that.
Awesome, mate. Thank you very much. I just took your advice that you gave to 20-year-old Rob and just cracked on, made a decision, and went along with it, mate. So, yeah. Brother, thank you very much. We've got to do this again in the future, mate. It's always a pleasure chatting to you. I'll chat to you next time, Rob.
Cheers, Shaun. Thanks, brother.
The Western world is in the middle of a mental health crisis, and our veterans have taken action. Swiss 8's team of combat veterans have built a proactive mental health program that is delivered through a mobile app. The app offers users programs in 8 categories of health and lifestyle, all proven to reduce anxiety and depression. This holistic model forms your daily routine, aiding you to build structure, improve discipline, and take ownership of your life. Once these habits are formed, the app will teach you new skills that can form identity, purpose, and encourage physical interaction to rebuild your tribe and reduce isolation.